Good. How you been, bud?
Great, man. It's good to see you, pal.
You too.
You got some warm weather down there yet?
Yeah. What do you want to fight?
No, no, no. Nice. Well, I don't know.
I thought you were
I'm
being a
always up for a
smartass.
fight. No.
It was
Well,
like 18 last night.
was it really?
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's save it for the show. The fighting part.
Yeah. We need an antagonist and a protagonist.
We are live, fellows. Well, it says starting soon, but I think there's always a delay when Martin does it too. Come on.
I tried to guilt Mutton coming on, but it was
You are. Yep.
ultimately
We're there.
unsuccessful.
Okay. All right. Has anybody got their Audacities opened?
I do.
Are you ready, Fred, to count down?
Hang on. Check my microphone here. Blah, blah, blah. Settings. Oh, shoot. Uh-oh. Hang on. I got to redo Audacity right back.
Does that mean you're leaving us?
Well, no, I won't be right back. Won't leave, actually.
Okay. Could you scare me?
Okay. All right. ATR, blah, blah, blah. All right. I am ready. And is everybody ready?
Yep. Count
All
down,
right.
Fred.
3, 2, 1, record.
Test.
Check.
All right.
Check.
All right. Test. Check.
Very good. And we're like 2 minutes late, really, and that's good. That's really early for us.
Yeah, but we have nothing to talk about.
Yeah, right. Go ahead, Fred, because you are. All right, do the intros, and this is episode 11. 111. Episode 111.
Actually, I think I might have been on episode 11.
Oh, you were on quite a few in the beginning, so.
All right, let me pull up my little. Oh, for Pete's sake!
Yellow. Taiwan.
Hang on, it's a school. Let me see what they want.
And there goes Fred.
Yeah. Can you fly us to somewhere on a field trip?
Whole school. Fly him off.
Yeah.
Fly him to a field trip. Field trip.
Yeah, I'm gonna go fill out a survey of how the food is in the cafeteria.
Wait a minute. Why are you eating in the cafeteria?
I've never even eaten it, and I can tell you how it is.
You never eaten before?
No, never.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, here we go. Where are we at here? There we go.
Wow.
It's 111, correct?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right, you guys ready?
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to the Geeksters, episode 111, recorded March 25th, 2014. I'm Fred, filling in for Mr. Obando, who must have won a lottery or something because he went to Disneyland. No, he's on vacation with the family, so hope he has a good time. But I would say that I'm joined by, but actually I'm not joined by, I'm joining Tim Bauermeister. How you doing, Tim?
Good, buddy. How you doing? It's good to see you, Fred, man. It's like been forever, pal.
It's been at least a while.
It seems like forever.
Well, I am the Chupacabra.
You are.
I come out, I'm seen, and then I disappear again.
You're not a Chupacabra. You are the Chupacabra.
That's right. And also Mitch Heyman, who I had the pleasure of seeing this past Saturday. How you doing, Mitch?
I'm doing good, Fred. I was glad to see you, and it was nice meeting Mike Smith and Kerry Holzman at the Mike Tech Show meetup for his 500th show. It was good. A very good turnout. Everything really worked out wonderful.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up real quick. We, as those of you who don't know, Mike Smith, the Mike Tech Show, who is a good friend of the Podnuts Network, has been for a long time. He had his 500th show in Philadelphia area, And so to commemorate that, he held a meetup, and also included Kerry Holzman, who co-hosts with him for Tech Vets. So Mitch and I both were able to make it. I had to fly out. Mitch was able to drive up. I flew out on a Friday, last Friday, and then came home Sunday. And Mitch drove up Saturday for the actual events. So yeah, we were able to meet Mike Smith and Kerry Holzman, and then just a bunch of other. I mean, there was probably about 40 people there, Mitch?
I would say close to 40 people. That's counting family and some of the sponsors that were there, but it was a good turnout. I think he was quite satisfied.
Yeah, the room was full. I mean, every seat was filled, so that was perfect. But yeah, we had a great time and met some really good people, and got to go down and have some Gino's Philly cheesesteak sandwiches. Those were really good. And I think a good time was had by all.
We got to meet Citizen X.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we got to meet Barb.
And I think you know who she is.
That was her in that picture.
Yeah, I think you know who she is. Yeah.
Yeah, she was there, and let's
Russ
see
from the formerly I can't talk. The Techie Geek podcast. Russ Winter, he's a great guy, man. What a nice guy.
Complete gentleman, absolutely. So yeah, and on top of that, we picked up a guest for the show, Corey Fruitman, who owns Instant House Call. He's going to come on the Geeksters here in a couple weeks, and talk to us. He's got some really interesting insights I think people will like to hear on Windows 8. And we're going to start the show off, and we're just going to have Tim look at him and go, Windows 8 sucks.
All right.
Was that your first experience with it, Tim?
No.
Recently?
No, it's not.
Okay. Gotcha.
No, I'm teasing Tim. He has a different outtake on Windows 8, or a different outlook, I should say. And so everybody who was there listening to him really, really enjoyed his insights. So I'm looking forward to having him on.
When I was messing around with Windows 8, which was maybe a month or so before the hard drive went up, I had no problem with it. I mean, I didn't do a lot with the Metro interface, but the thing is, you didn't have to. And I don't see what all the complaining was about. I mean, personally, I didn't have that much of a problem with it at all. Now, all right, I did have a problem. Because you would have a desktop app for Skype and a Metro app. I'm saying Metro. They don't like to call it Metro for Skype. But that was a pain. I got to admit that was a pain. I just stuck with went back with the desktop Skype app, the regular desktop Skype app. So that was kind of funky the way that worked. So I don't know if Fred messed with that before. But other than that, really, it wasn't that bad. Because I had the classic shell on there too, Fred. But I took it off just to start, trying to learn how to do things with the new interface.
Yeah, I did too. I took it off while we were down there, and it's a learning experience. But after you start wrapping your brain around the why, I think it's a little bit easier to use. But let's save all that for when Corey's on, because he's much more educated on it than what we are. But so yeah, that was the weekend. I guess, Tim, how you been, man? What have you been into? What's your business looking like?
Well, I actually came today to talk about Windows 8. So. I seriously, that was
as usual, Tim. You're 2 weeks early.
That was literally that was
doesn't matter really.
That was the event. Well, you know what? This isn't gonna this isn't in place of our guest. Look, I'll tell you what. If you can get anybody on here who can sell me on this, because I want it to be easy, I want it to work, I want everybody to love it, I want people to have technology that they can use and it satisfies and it's not a confounding mystery. Okay, so that's great. I did kind of what I really want to do is just kind of update my stance on Windows 8. So it's today isn't the day where I come and I eat crow and talk about how much I love it now, which I don't. I still think it's ridiculous, and just kind of. I really feel that my position is the same as everybody's. That unless they've spent a lot of time with it and they've been able to sell themselves on all these new features, um, Windows 8 is a confounding mystery. We've had the Start button since 1995, and everything has looked just about the same. Now, I mean, with every next edition of Windows, they've hidden a lot of the things. You have to maybe a couple extra clicks. Well, I used to click that to get here, but now I have to do that. Okay, but I mean, you kind of figure it out. But it's all very familiar. You can sit down and you can use it. This thing, you can't do that. You cannot take it out of the box and just use it. They shouldn't even call it Windows because it's not anymore. It's different. Is Windows underneath there somewhere? Yeah, sure. They should call it like Storm Windows because it's like it covers it up and makes it different somehow. But so and just kind of like to recap, like up until like this weekend, my experience with Windows 8 has been, hey honey, here's a brand new laptop with brand new Windows 8. And I knew that there were some issues with it, getting around it, but I was like, I'll let my wife use it and she'll figure it out, and I'll just kind of like pick up on it from there. She did. She could not find her way around it. I mean, there should be maybe when you first start up, there should be like little hints or something that you can turn off. Like Clippy comes out and tells you to kind of hover over here to get this thing out here, and the charms thing and the whole deal. What Mitch was talking about, you had a good experience with it, but that was with classic shell running, right?
No, not necessarily. I just put it on, but I took it off just to,
one thing with
the
the original Windows 8 was that you couldn't boot to the desktop. Now with Windows 8.1, you can boot to the desktop, which is a huge deal because unless you're using a touchscreen, and I've been trying to use the tile interface without a touchscreen just to live in that environment.
Sure.
And I will say it's challenging. However, it's not impossible. I'm beginning to get my tiles organized and getting rid of the ones that I don't want and putting the ones up that I do want. It's making more sense than what it did originally.
See, I think it's made for, like, I think, Tim, you said the one you just had recently was a touchscreen.
Yeah, I'd mentioned that earlier.
Yes, and that's what it's meant for. If you have a touchscreen, I think the user experience will be that much better. Of course, I don't
think that it's fair to say it's meant for that. I mean, yeah, okay. I guess it does work better.
Well, because they want it to match their phone.
But it works with the mouse, too. So.
They want it to match the Windows phone.
I do not hate the new interface. I think that if you have it on a phone, I think if you have it on a tablet, I actually think it's pretty nice. I think in a lot of ways, I think it's comparable or better than using iOS or the devices or the Android. I think that all three of those bring something to the table. I don't hate it. On a touchscreen, I believe it's what it's meant for. It's very good. You give me a laptop and I have to use a mouse, it doesn't make any damn sense. So anyway, this weekend we did. Now I'll tell you what, I was amazed going out, since I haven't been sending people up to the Staples or Best Buy or whatever to buy a laptop. I'm truly amazed. It never ceases to amaze me how much hardware you get for your money. I mean, every 3 to 6 months, it's stunning how the prices come down and the hardware goes up. We went and bought a fantastic machine. It was a Dell. I think the fit and finish, I think it's cheap plastically, but it's going to be. But the underlying, it was like it was $450, I think. Came with a touch screen. It was a 15-inch. Fantastic. I mean, all the typical specs that you would expect. I was really amazed. But the touchscreens are becoming very common, and with the touchscreen on there, I'm like, okay, now this Windows 8 makes sense, kind of. I could kind of feel my way around. I could kind of find things, but it really there's still quite a bit of time that is required. I think I would need several days with it to start to feel like I was comfortable, and I hold to the position that moving from a mouse or a touchpad to a touchscreen is an evolutionary step backwards. Why should I have to wave my hands about if I can just wave the end of my finger about? So in the laptop, you can kind of make it work. It makes some sense. If it was a touch device, I think it's fine. And whatever these features are, and you were mentioning booting to the desktop, if that's possible, it's not made obvious. I haven't studied up on Windows 8, so 0.1, so I'm not sure how you would go about doing that. But I still, still bringing up the Metro user interface, whatever they do call it. So was it impossible? Did I hate it? I didn't hate it as much. I still think it's just kind of silly the way it's presented, the way it's given to you. Why can't we just have something out of the box? It really is too much to ask, I guess, to have something out of the box that you can figure out. It makes sense quickly.
Well,
if I hand anybody an Android device, they're gonna find their way around it relatively quickly. This thing, not so much, and it's only made worse by the fact that it's called Windows, and you're expecting something out of the box. And did I kind of make a sense of it? Yeah, but as soon as I did something that brought me to the standard desktop for whatever reason, it was like, there we go, there it is. You're back, baby.
Well, that's the whole point.
But then I would click something, and I go back to my tiles, and I'm like, screw this.
But see, that's the point, Tim, is that's what you're used to. So, is it different? Yes, it is different. Is it different than DOS was? Yes, it is. So, I mean, it's an evolutionary change, and
but they didn't call it DOS 8.1. They called it Windows. I mean, they actually sold it as something different, better. I guess ultimately my problem is not the product. It's the way that it's being marketed. It's like, here, this is what you've had.
You're right.
This is what you've had, but it's better because it's one more, and now it's 1.1 more, so it's way better, like by 10%, I guess. I don't know, but it's not. It's entirely different. And if they just had like an old Wi-Fi switch, a physical switch on the side of it, you could just like click and just make it go to the desktop, like make it the way, and then you can make it the way it used to be, or then make it go back this new way. I mean, if you could switch it like that, we'd be golden. I'd be set.
The biggest complaint you hear that I hear is there's no start menu. And one of the questions that was raised, well, how often do you use the start menu? Now, some people answered, I use it all the time. That's how I navigate. For me, I never use it. I don't use it. The only time I use the start menu is when I'm going to, like, computer, or my computer, whatever operating system we're talking about, to right-click it and go to properties or to, something else. But that's it. It's really the only time I use it, because all my programs that I use are on my desktop in folders. So I'm not actually going to the start menu to start programs.
No.
So I never use it. So I was thinking about that. I'm like, you know what? You're right. I never do use start menu other than for what I just described.
I think most of us are like that, Fred. We do what you're doing, or have shortcuts on our desktop or the bottom taskbar, and
as a matter of fact, on my bench machine here, I have my computer and control panel on my desktop. I don't even go to the start menu for that. So, is it that big of a deal? No, it really isn't. It's just different, and it's going to take education and time. Now, one of the things that I wish we're having this conversation early, but that's okay. If Corey was here, one of the things he would tell you is, in his opinion, it's not going back the other way. There were people that were adamant at this get-together that the start menu will come back, and he is adamant that their Windows is not going to bring it back. So,
well, I hope not. I mean, if this is their position, just stick with it. I mean, let's just, if this is what it is, then let's just accept it and move on. I mean, we do have workarounds. You make a good point that for the average user running applications and whatnot, it's rare that they need anything more than shortcuts or tiles or whatever you want to call them. It's basically the same thing. It's very hard to get under the hood, though, as a tech, without understanding it. Obviously, once you understand the process or whatever. But That's all right. I'm willing to be just the crazy bearded guy out in the wilderness eating wildflowers and locusts and complaining about Windows 8 point DOS,
Eating
whatever it
eating
is.
red berries, seeing things that you shouldn't see.
What would I see?
You obviously haven't seen that commercial.
Oh, I guess not. You know what? And the other thing was that, look, I don't hate it. I just hate having to use it and the way it's been rolled out, the way it's been presented. I know maybe that sounded funny the way it came out.
I don't hate it. I just hate using it.
I just hate everything about it too.
Yeah.
And I hate the and I hate the people,
hate it.
and I think that Windows 8.1 should die in a fire, but I don't hate it. No, it's I tell you the other thing too is that it's just too radical of a change. I think most people already know this, but one of the first questions that I get from a lot of my users, they're residential, and this person asked the same thing. Okay, what about my solitaire? I mean, they didn't even ask. They didn't even look for it. They just asked about it.
Not there.
And it clicked. I was like, oh, that's right, because ever since we got, well, I think that it was Windows 3.1, like the last version that did not come with the solitaire. You have to download it. Okay, I kind of get that. I think that was a kind of a clever little thing they did. That everybody's going to want their solitaire, and so this kind of forces you to use Store, which was an amazingly creative name. Thank you for that, Store, to go and download it. So it does kind of get people in, makes them familiar with the process. I don't have a huge problem with that. But once again, why not have Clippy come out and say, hey, if you want your solitaire, you have to go here and download it free. I mean, that would make sense. So I don't know. And could anybody? We could probably address this, I guess, when we have our guest. But what exactly is everyone's position on malware software, AV software, and whatnot? That's another thing that's kind of chapping me right now is that in typical Microsoft fashion, we have a product that I've liked. I've liked it for a long time. I felt like it's done well. It's been very low on resources. I feel it's effective. It runs quietly. It's made me happy, and now it's gone. Supposedly, it seems that it's running in the background. It's been rolled into something, the other malware products that they already had, and they're calling it Defender. But Microsoft Security Essentials it's not. It no longer exists, but it does kind of. So is AV software really even required anymore? Because there is something that's running in place of it. If there isn't, to me it seems like, hey, this is a product that I've loved, and now it's just kind of there already. But of course, the man at the store, they tried to upsell us pretty hard on stuff, and he explained there was no AV software, which to me is a lie. There is.
There is. But
that's if you choose to accept that Microsoft Security Essentials, that's now called Defender, actually is AV software.
yes, if you bought something that came with a demo or something, that it will be disabled. You have to go in there.
That's correct.
And enable it. I had to do that with my sisters.
That's right. We did uninstall the trial version of whatever was on there, and once it booted back up, because I think I got a message saying that it was unprotected, there was nothing running, rebooted, and bam,
So that brings a good question, because I have this question. In Windows 8, if you're running, like, for example, Avast or some other AV, is Defender, is it disabled?
That's a good question.
If it's an OEM machine, it's going to. If it's an OEM machine, like what Tim said, and if it comes with some demo, it's going to be disabled. But if you built your own, I can't remember if I had to enable. I think it was enabled. I might have had. I cannot remember, to be honest with you. I mean, what you did it, Fred? You put it on a couple. Didn't you install it on a couple machines yourself? Do you remember?
No.
I can't remember.
No, I was just curious if
I kind of had the impression.
I heard that somewhere.
I kind of had the impression that I may be completely wrong in this, but I was under the impression that there's something always kind of running, kind of like there always was in the back. Like there was always like a Defender something running, but it's not something you would rely on as a standalone real-time antivirus scanner. So I got the impression maybe there's something always kind of running, but the actual full-blown Defender, they're calling it now, is not actually running if you do have a third-party AV installed.
Well, Windows Defender has been on since what? Vista? And
yeah, I think so.
But the Windows or Defender or Windows Defender, whatever it's being called now, the product that's on Windows 8 is not the same thing.
It looks the same though.
It looks the same as Microsoft Security Essentials.
Correct.
Is what it looks the same as.
Yeah.
And Brian, BrideTech09 on YouTube, I don't know if you guys caught this, he just did, literally this past weekend, an antivirus, one of his tests he does. Now, the last time he did Security Essentials, which was probably a year ago, it failed. It came in last. I mean, it was almost like, why even bother? But he just did one recently using Defender and Windows 8, and it came out really high.
It's improvement, yeah.
So what he said was, of course he got flamed a little bit on his channel, but he said, listen, they've obviously upped their game. They saw the problem, and that they're recognize it, and they're fixing it. So he's made it look as though, and I agree with him. If you're running Windows 8 and Windows Defender, I think you're safe. I think the average person is as safe as they're going to get. I mean, as far as AV is concerned. But who knows? Time will tell.
All right. Well, anyway, that was just kind of my update. That I went into it with. I promise. I went into it with a good attitude. Like I was. I mean, I hate things, but only because I haven't had the opportunity to like them yet, and so I'm always willing to try something again. If it still is awful, then I'll be the first to tell you. But it was different. It did have the touchscreen, and you know what? I was able to give it. It's the first time I actually was able to give it to a user, and I said, "Look, this is going to be different. It's a touchscreen. You're going to have to try some things." And I watched them, and they were very comfortable exploring it, and kind of. I said, "Here, just use it and find your way around it," and it wasn't awful. So having that touchscreen was. It really made a huge difference, and so, like I said, I find a lot of merit in the user interface. I still need to be convinced that
when you hear from Corey, you're going to hear a lot of things, Tim, that are going on in the background, and a lot of things that we didn't like about Windows 7 were fixed in Windows 8, but we don't talk about them. And unfortunately, I'm not going to go into all that stuff because I'm going to save that for when he's on.
I look forward to it.
One of the things that, and I'll let the cat out of the bag on this one, that I did not know this, is that with one of the complaints you hear about Windows 8, especially when you're using the tile interface, is that I don't want all these programs running. So you look down the left side, right, of when you're in the tile interface, or even desktop, and you'll see all the programs that you used to have running, right? Well, I always thought those are still sitting there running using resources. Wrong. When you suspend a program or change programs in Windows 8, the developer has 2 seconds to put that program into a complete suspended mode. So when you see that application over there on that left side on your tile, it's using 0 resources.
I see.
It's not running. And then I believe he said as a developer you have a second, or I don't remember the time. It's very quick. If I were to click on that again, to get that program to run again. And it's all spelled out how quickly they have to do it. And because this guy's a developer, so I mean he pretty well versed on this stuff. But yeah, so there's a lot of myths, I think, and we learned a lot of them this weekend. So
I suppose, well, you know what, those are features that you would need on devices with lesser hardware, the phones and the tablets and whatnot. And so I could see why that would be an important feature they would need to implement with these, and that. obviously the laptops. I mean, there's more hardware than most people need. I mean, they're checking their mail and stuff. They don't need all this, but anything that's going to make it run better, longer, hey, I'm all for it. And so that sounds fantastic. Yeah, I mean, all these great things about it that I don't know about yet. I look forward to hearing about. Like I said, I don't hate it. I just hate using it.
Can we talk some shop? Can we talk some shop?
Let's do it. I'm done talking about Windows 8 up.
Well, let me tell you, Tim. We talked about this last couple weeks. We both have our phones rooted, and I think I was telling you my GPS wasn't working. Well, I was indoors. It was working. It was working fine, actually. Okay. So when we went to the Mike Tech meetup in Fort Washington, PA, Saturday, I said, "Well, I'm going to use my phone." I took my TomTom anyway, but I don't know how to use the TomTom. It's my wife's. But anyway, but the GPS works so good in Android when it does work.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay, so I set it up. So I'm going off, and about 5 miles from the house, my phone shut down on me. I said, "Oh man!" So
it rebooted, or it just shut down.
It didn't even come back on at this time.
Okay.
So I turned it back on. I said, "Well, let me go into stock ROM." Well, the stock ROM, because we have that choice with what we're using.
I love
stock
that.
ROM is unusable. Just everything crashes in there. So I go back into Cyanogen. So I said, I just won't have it plugged up. So it's working. So I get there I'm more than halfway there, and then it says my battery is just about to die. So I plug it in. It's working. And as soon as I got to the place, the whole thing died on me. It died, and even though it was plugged in. So coming back, so I'm charging. Yes, Fred. I had it charging up the whole time I was there. So I left about 5 o'clock. Yeah. So it's working, and I'm like 3/4 way home, and it rebooted this time on me. It rebooted. It was still charged though. It wasn't dead or anything.
Yeah. But
it's kind of hard maneuvering back to where you were when you reboot. You have to go back into it when you're driving. So that's the only issue I have with this ROM mainly is because I get these reboots or shutdowns with it. So other than that, there's no outstanding problems with it.
I am not rooting or ROMing my phone.
No, if you don't have a reason, Fred, I mean, if you don't have a reason, and those pictures you took out really came out good with your phone.
Well, the problem is, what I've found is that, because I wanted to do it just because it's good and geeky, right? And I did it with my last 2 phones. There's always something that doesn't work right. Mm-hmm. It's either audio levels, which I had on my UI. The battery dies too quick. The phone doesn't work right. It just seems like everything else will work great, but then you'll run across this one little thing that doesn't work right.
See, I'm just the opposite.
And it drives you crazy.
More things don't work right in the stock ROM than the Cyanogen.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't have that problem at all with mine. I've got the Note 3 now, and I'll tell you, it just works. I mean, granted, you have all the bloatware, but I don't. It's all in the app drawer. I don't have it on my desktop.
Right.
So,
well,
I don't know.
I worked on 2 PCs.
Real quickly on that. When was the last time that you did a complete factory? Restore?
It was. You remember when I did? Remember I lost root. I didn't have. I saved root. I used that, but you had posted a picture. I didn't have those check marks, so it didn't back up my root. So that was 4 months ago, something like that.
Okay. So, yeah. See, I mean, I was thinking maybe that would have cleared out a lot of that because you and I had the same device, and I'll tell you what, I really believe that because those issues you were talking about, GPS. It's the Razor Max, by the way. Or do you have the Max or no?
No.
No. Okay. All right. But it's the XD912, whatever. It's the same device. So the GPS, and I have a lot of experience with GPS in this device. Spending a lot of time in a GPS dependent. Okay, we won't talk about that.
You mean Ingress?
Never heard of it. So. Listeners dropped like flies.
The hat is going on about Ingress.
Okay, so I don't need a hat telling me about Ingress for 20 minutes, or whatever he said. I have a lot of experience with GPS in this device. these phones, the GPS in that particular device is just not very good. Plain and simple. Second of all, I think the hardware is weak. I've had it side by side with an S3. I mean, the S3 is amazing.
Really?
I have an S3. It came in with a broken screen. It's I'm a screen smash, but I can still use it. I just tinker with it. And I mean, the two running next to each other, the S3, it's amazing. So everything runs faster. I mean, you go in like when you go in and end a running program, it says, oh, it might misbehave, and you click OK, and then clear cache. That process takes 3 or 4 times as long with the Razor as it does with the S3.
Right.
So I mean, it's obviously that there's a hardware issue there. I really think the hardware is a little weak on these phones. And I mean, the battery, it's always been an issue with these. They had a huge major. You remember when they had those recalls when they first came out with the battery issues?
No, I don't remember that.
A lot of people had their phones replaced, or they got different devices because there was a problem with the battery. So, and both of our phones, I mean, they're really nearing the end of the service life.
Yes,
so I mean, I know my 2 years was up a couple days ago. So, these the issues you're talking about, I mean, but the rebooting, I've always had that rebooting. I've always had some GPS issues. But I'll tell you what, since running this the CyanogenROM ROM that got me from 4.1.2 the Jelly Bean up to the 4.4.2 KitKat, I got to say that I still have some of those issues, but they're nowhere near as bad as they used to. So, I kind of wonder. I mean, you and I, we have the same, virtually the same device, virtually the same age, doing virtually the same thing, and you're having some of these issues. I kind of wonder if there isn't something different in it, with yours than mine. So maybe I don't know. I mean, it's a possible. Maybe the writable memory inside of it's got some. I don't know, like some defective spots. It's getting old and wearing out. I mean, who knows?
So remember, you use I use Nightly, and you use a different one.
Yeah,
Snapshot or something.
Whatever it was. So.
Yes, I don't know if it's going to make that much of a difference, really.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm really satisfied with it now, even with the few problems I have.
Yeah.
But even when I did do a factory reset 4 months ago, it was a little bit better in the beginning. But there's a ton of stuff on there if you look.
Yes, there is.
I mean, compared to Cyanogen when you first put that on.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. All right. Well, it's a good update. And what do you think? I mean, mine will do quirky things like that for a day or two, but then it'll be solid for a week, and then it'll do those quirky things So is that kind of the way once it gets like settled in and it's happy? Is it okay for a while, or?
I don't use GPS that much. I mean, just when I go somewhere. That was my main issue. Oh, and trying to get wireless tether to work. I think it rebooted once doing that.
I think
but it doesn't.
I haven't found an application that'll work yet with the
Razor. Yeah,
but but you use GPS constantly. GPS comes on every time you open Voxer.
I do have it on. Yeah, I mean,
every time Voxer opens up, the GPS starts running and gets your location. So,
I used to have it disabled a lot in the stock ROM, but not in here though.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it's it may just be I really just kind of chalk it up to inherent issues with the device. Maybe the hardware is a little weak. Some of these things I don't know that ever really work that well. And then just to gauge. I mean, after a couple of years, I know mine's been through the ringer. So I think that I'm not happy. I'm satisfied with it. I'm not thrilled with the device.
Right.
I really think that's doing I think it's working about as well as it can. And after a couple of years, I have nothing to complain about. So.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I I worked on a couple computers the last couple of weeks, and you guys know the story about the laptop and the Toshiba laptop, and I got it cleaned, and his files was all jacked up. I cleaned it up. Anyway, I told him about. He said it's been working fine, so I told him about Roadkiller. That's a nice program because I was working on his desktop, and that's the only thing that worked to get this one. this desktop cleaned up. Anyway, so I told my buddy about it. So he went to download it, and obviously he didn't download the right thing. He said he was getting all his stuff, and it got it messed up. So I said, we'll bring it in today. So at lunchtime, I cleaned it up, and it was founding. It was actually kind of doing what it was doing before. It was just redirecting back to his PC. But I saw in his the page that was set for Google Plus, it had a conduit in there. So but I used Roadkiller and actually Hitman Pro, and it found the same thing and deleted it. So why did one find it? You figure if the one find it, why did the other one? So I'm hoping it's clean. I had it working good. I cleaned all the temp files. I mean the temps and the local user and those folders there. I threw away, deleted some programs that look kind of, as our friend would say, dodgy. Yeah, you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
Because they did. I mean,
it's a great word. Yeah.
He started having these problems in like middle of last month. So and that's when it was the date it was from. And so I just started deleting them. I didn't see it associated with anything, and it's add or remove programs. And I'm hoping it's going to be all right now. And then with this other computer I had, their main problem was actually why they gave it to me. It was a HP Slimline desktop. It's I think it's a P, like maybe a lower end Celeron dual core. It's got Windows 7, 64-bit, 4 gigs of RAM. But they could not get it to go on. It was shut down. They couldn't get it to come on. And I didn't have that problem. So I told them, well, if you have an issue, just unplug everything, press the power supply button in for 20 seconds.
Yeah.
See, because it's a lot of these low-end power supplies. Anyway.
Oh, sure. Drain the caps and...
Yeah, so I'm not, I mean, I didn't look inside of it. Maybe I should have. But anyway, because I didn't have an issue. It's starting up every time with me. But the issue was, I want to look at some things. I'm opening Windows. It's just taking a really long time. I want to look at the adapter, the settings in the adapter for the NIC
Sure.
It would take like 5 minutes to open up. And if it did, something wasn't right. And then I noticed. Security Center wouldn't run. Couldn't get that to open. And I tried to run junkware removal tool. I got an error, server execution error, and that would hang from there. That wouldn't run. So these things weren't. Something's not right on there.
Yeah.
And nothing is picking it up. I mean, the resources are real low, and so I did rkill, Malwarebytes in chameleon mode, and it's not finding any. Everything's clean, and so let me try Roadkiller because I think Brian and I think Carrie also they recommended it, and sure enough, I found like 6 or 8 registries, and if you look at the registry real, I mean, it's telling you what the problem was. It was telling these services not to run. So, and there was Norton's on there. I even installed that thinking that was causing a problem. It didn't. But as soon as I ran that Roadkiller and removed
Roadkiller, yeah, that's I love the name. It's a fantastic name.
Yeah. As soon as I removed those registry entries, everything started working. And
how'd you come onto that program?
Well, I think I might have used it years ago. Remember how before when you couldn't get into or you get those ransomwares and you could get into safe mode, but you had to run these programs to kill. I think I used to use it like rkill and Roadkill.
Oh, sure.
Or back then, but it's different now. It looks like it's got a Windows interface and it'll you start running it. I don't know if you ran Adware Cleaner. It's something similar to that. It's got these different tabs. It's got the registry tab, your host file tab, I think a boot up tab, your browser tab. So the only thing I found was in the registry, those registry entries, and I took them out and let it delete it, and it was fine.
Oh, I've come across that so many times where the machine it's like it's clean. I mean, all the scans are like, it's clean, and it's not like it didn't find anything because there's something malicious running, but it's obfuscated somehow, and the scanner just can't find it. It for all intents and purposes, it's quote unquote clean.
Yeah, those entries
Windows,
were not fixed. Yeah.
Windows remains broken. I mean,
right.
Core functions, like start, right click on computer and click properties. nothing happens. It's like, just these basic things, these services. Windows Update. Well, the service isn't running. You go in, the service isn't even there.
Right.
And it's like, I mean, it's like, well, I wish I'd known to do a reinstall 10 hours ago or whatever. It's, now that I'm on this quest. And so I'm fascinated to hear this, that, it may be something as simple as, hey, finding these services that have been instructed not to run, flip the switches back on them, and
in my case, it wouldn't turn on. In my case, and some were grayed out because I went there and tried to turn them back on.
Right. But from the Roadkiller, you were able to.
Yeah, it turned everything back on. Everything was working. Yeah.
Right, there you go. So
you just don't. And there's another program, tweakingwindows.com. There's a utility there that can fix a lot of your. Yeah, re-register your DLLs and all that stuff, and that's probably not a bad tool to run either after you get this stuff. I think that might have been some of the issues, but it's just I was surprised that Malwarebytes didn't catch anything on that one. Really surprised, even doing a long scan.
Are you still booting into safe mode and doing much from there, Mitch, on these cleanups?
It's 6 and 1, half the other's the other.
Okay.
Yeah, I do, thinking that maybe. But then I think sometimes you want to do it while Windows is running, while these bad things are running in the background, so it can stop it. So, but I'll go back and forth. I might do the same thing on both. I might run it once in Windows and go in safe mode. And
yeah, I mean, at one time that was almost. I mean, it was almost routine.
Right.
In safe mode, you run a host of programs to do this, that, and the other, and then you could boot normally. And whoops,
but I've been doing that chameleon mode a lot lately in Malwarebytes, just in case. Yeah.
Have you? Okay, just in case. It's not been.
No, it's still running in Windows, but I do it anyway, thinking that maybe it'll find something different.
Well, I remember Malwarebytes being described as a program that actually is more effective running in normal mode because it actually catches things that are running that wouldn't be running in safe mode. So I always made sure to run it in, after booting normally, but it always seemed necessary to run in safe mode first, to run the RKill and the other things, just to get Windows running well enough that you could. But I was just wondering what your experience has been, the last so many months. Would you say? I mean, that a lot of these programs seem to do well booting normally and getting a lot of these things out without having to boot. I mean, it's still a very good thing to do if necessary, but it doesn't seem to be as necessary as it used to.
See, I'm getting to the point where, I'm using, malware, but maybe 4 different programs, and one or the other finds something that the other doesn't. Right. Well, how do I know if I didn't try 4 more programs? They're not going to find something that the other 4 doesn't. It's just like, you're never 100% sure. I mean, you can go by the way the system's running, the feel of it. If it's running snappy.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, it's just, where I can understand why some people say once you're infected, you can never clean it. You never know 100% sure if it's clean. But
once it feels right in the seat of the pants, a lot of times those things they find. I mean, when you agree, they're just artifacts, or they're just
some of them are artifacts. Like the registry entries, there was no infections on there, but they were not fixed because whatever clean when actually I think I cleaned this up a year ago, whatever, the same machine, it didn't fix the registry entry, or they got some other problems or whatever, because I think they do run stuff, but it doesn't always fix things that they're, like a little stupid little registry entry or reset what it broke, and I don't know.
Well, and that's actually a very, very good point, in that a lot of times removing the infection is only part of the job. That the infection's running and it's doing these malicious things, and so you remove it and ta-da. But a lot of these things actually break Windows along the way. That part of what it does is disable these things and.
That's why I think I think Fred probably knows this. It doesn't D7 have a thing in there that fixes, re-registers everything.
Oh yeah, yep.
Yeah, so that's a good thing to have. I haven't messed with it lately, but and there's different, like I said, tweakingwindows.com. So
that, and I'll tell you, a lot of times when a machine just still didn't feel right, it never hurts to run
combo fix.
No. uh, the oh my gosh,
Right.
system
Back
file
to-
checker.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I was going to do that. I was going to do that on this one the other day if Road Killer didn't fix it. Yeah.
So that's a command prompt.
Scan space dot slash SFC, something like that. Yeah.
It's a command prompt with administrative rights.
Right.
And it's SFC forward
Scan
slash
now.
scan now. SCA.
Yeah.
You know, and anyway, that just kind of goes through and scans. Now it probably isn't going to pick up on those broken registry entries like you had, but if there are Windows files and components, core stuff that's broken or gone or whatever.
One time I had it work. Most time I use scan now SFC. One time I picked it up on a machine. Sure enough, it was corrupted, and I had to find the DL. So I found it somewhere online and I put it back, and it worked.
I've had it fix many things, and I'll tell you what, I think there are plenty of machines that,
well, it didn't fix it. Scan. I had to get the file. I had to find it. It told me what was broken, but it doesn't download it. You have to go find it, and I.
Was that an XP machine?
It was an XP machine. Yeah.
Okay, and so an XP was different. That with started with Vista and on. XP would always request disks.
Right.
That hasn't happened since Vista. It's all kind of self-contained. So
okay.
I think that was a huge improvement. But I've had many machines that come in that run that scanner. I don't think it's unusual for a machine to come in that doesn't find something, even if the infection doesn't cause it. Just over time, I think some things do kind of tend to get broken. So you're never going to. In my experience, you're never going to run it and have it break something, but very often it does find something. It is kind of, I think it's a good tune-up measure. So I love it. The system file checker. So did we lose Fred?
I'm sure he's around. Have you been working on anything lately?
No, I'm here. Sorry.
I kind of wanted to. I set up that new machine, the Windows 8 machine for the customer. I didn't want to bring this up, but I did have a only because I left the screenshots on my other computer, but I did deal with a Java exploit, and so I finally saw some things that I've always kind of wondered about. So I think I'm gonna have to save that for next week. What a great cliffhanger! I'm sure everybody can't wait to come back and hear about my screenshots of a Java exploit.
Well, I had
I'm such a nerd. I'm disgusted with myself by what a nerdy thing that is to get excited about.
Well, in that HP, I did have another problem. I thought it was all fixed, and I tried to run. I checked both browsers, Chrome and Internet Explorer. I couldn't get anything. I couldn't get video to play in Chrome. I mean, Internet Explorer on YouTube. It would play for a second to stop, and it would give you that error. Try back in 30 minutes or something like that. Oh man, and it's working fine in Chrome.
30 minutes.
Oh man! So I went and uninstalled it, reinstalled it. Use the old version 10, and so long story short, I had to clear out the cache, on on Adobe Flash. I deleted everything. Once I did that, it worked. It was working fine.
Unless Fred,
I got a problem.
What's up?
I have a problem.
With me?
With the computer.
What's going on? What's up, buddy?
I just got a computer in, right? This is going to be live on the air. We're going to fix this bad boy. It's an Acer Aspire.
Yeah.
A few years old. It's a Walmart special. And no video. Okay?
Yeah.
So you turn it on. The lights all light up. The fans spool up. But there's nothing on the screen.
Okay.
And it's not like an inverter. You flash a flashlight. There's nothing, zero, nada.
Sure.
Plugged up an external monitor. Nothing on the external monitor. So I just literally got it in. So I'm actually troubleshooting as we speak. But I did Google it, and there are people saying that
I got an answer for you, but go ahead.
Oh no! If you got the answer, I'll stop.
Oh, I have a lot of answers.
I had the same issue, Fred. I thought the board was bad. One of the sticks of RAM was bad. I played with the six. Well, Tim recommended it, Timster. I took a stick out, bingo, it started right up, and that stick was bad.
The computer wouldn't start, or the video wouldn't play.
It started. I didn't get nothing on the screen. I mean, everything powered up. Yeah, I mean, it's worth a try.
Well, no,
but I was getting
darn right it's worth a try.
I mean, the keyboard, I was getting this blinking thing on there, like a code. And
I'm not getting anything like that.
Well, it may be, your video thing, onboard videos fried, but in my case, it was a bad stick of RAM.
Well, I did a little research and just before the show here, and on Google, and the tech's best friend, and there's a lot of people saying they're calling it the Acer Black Screen, and I watched a few YouTube videos.
That sounds like it.
Yeah. And they're saying that now get this. Does this make any sense to you at all? This guy did there's actually 3 or 4 videos on YouTube about this. Updating the BIOS. And that fixes it.
Oh. Okay. Well, that's
you can't see to get into the BIOS.
Well, you have to put it on a USB stick on a boot and make it bootable, and it so that it boots straight to the USB stick and it runs on
automatically,
boot up.
Right?
But really,
that would be one of the last things I would try.
Well, it might be one of the first things I try if you're going to have to tear the board apart.
Well, I've already got it torn apart, but the other one was a CMOS battery, which again.
Well, that's an easy fix too, though.
Well, it's one of those stupid ones that's like soldered, But
Oh, is it really? Oh.
Okay, so when you get a laptop in with no video, I think we all agree a pretty standard operating process is, as it's booting up, do you have no video? Sometimes you can see it, you can barely make it out, but it's just super dim. Okay, that is where the screen's working, but you don't have the backlight, right?
Right.
Okay, so like I said, I think we all. I'm just kind of reviewing this for myself and everybody.
No,
okay,
go ahead.
So, can you see it, but it's dim? And you say no. Okay, so
no.
that to me is either that tells me that we're getting nothing to the screen. So. Of course, if it's very dim, the next step isn't a bad step. But you plug it up to an external monitor, right? With these laptops, I mean, it's always like your next step. The external monitor. Do you have good video there or not? 9 times out of 10, you usually do, right? Because it's usually a screen issue or something.
Right.
If you have good video at the monitor, your external monitor, that tells you that there's an issue with the screen itself or the inverter. And so the inverter, it's kind of like a ballast that fires a little fluorescent tube. Basically, the backlight is nothing more than imagine a fluorescent tube, roughly about like a piece of a length of uncooked spaghetti. I mean, that's basically what it's like. It's just about as brittle. So, but if you have nothing, and it doesn't fire the external monitor, now you got problems because that usually doesn't end well. Would you agree? A lot of times you have something serious with the main board, which is where the on a very, very rare case on a laptop, you may have a GPU, a separate video, actually like a video card that's bolted to it. That's very rare. That's going to be a high-end system, but otherwise, that GPU is going to be on board on the main board, and that's usually that has failed. I mean, you may have some other something really strange, like maybe if it's been damaged. Obviously, on these laptops, one of the first things I do is inspect it for abuse, or if it's been dropped or something. Maybe something really weird happened where actually, I had one come in recently where. A laptop only opens so many degrees, and so if you force it too many degrees past that, if you like to lay it out flat, that will break things inside of there. And so we had an issue like that. The cable in between the two might be damaged somehow, but generally, it's if you have nothing on board and you have nothing on the external monitor, you probably it's not unusual to have something bad that happen to the main board. So.
So you think the whole BIOS update? I mean, really?
I'm not.
Should I even try it?
I'm not feeling that, and I'll tell you what. Once you get to that point where it's like, okay, it doesn't look like it's the screen itself. Your next step is to start pulling components, which is what Mitch is talking about. Basically anything with a laptop, if it's acting up, you got a hardware. One of the greatest things I've ever learned, and I learned it here at Podnuts, was booting from some live disk. You boot up Linux, some Linux distro on from CD or however, and then you see if the problem still persists. If you have the problem in both the Windows or whatever that's installed natively on board there or the live disk, then you know that you have a problem that is common to both, which is going to be hardware. You start pulling components, and so you start removing components until your problem goes away. If you have the thing completely torn down and the only thing on your bench is the main board connected with the charger and a stick of known good RAM, and you still have the problem, then you've pretty much narrowed it down to the main board.
Right.
Yeah. Tim, do you ever do the what was it called? What's the process where you heat it up?
Oh, reflow.
Reflow.
This isn't a classic symptom of a reflow requirement, though.
I tell you what.
Normally, a reflow you're gonna have lines on the screen or something like that. It's not a black.
No, you can. I think you can get it without anything.
Yeah, it actually It manifests itself in a number of different ways. Both of those is possible. Actually, I did kind of skip a step, and a question I had, and you already answered the question though, is that if it's not booting up and you don't have, or actually you can't be entirely certain it's not booting up, but if you have nothing on the screen, do you have any beep codes? Do you have any flashing lights? Sometimes that will direct you toward something. And also, maybe it is booting up and you just can't tell. When you plug in the Ethernet cable, you actually see that the adapter is flashing, like maybe it's trying to make some connection. Can you hear everything running? Like it sounds like maybe it's trying to boot up. But generally, if it's some major a video issue, on board, typically it's not even getting past BIOS. But that's it. I mean, you kind of get to the point where you have to just start tearing it down until the faulty components removed. And if you get all the way to the end, you're probably looking at the main board. So, and I mean, if it's main board, if it's a reflow, I have done that just to try and resolve something long enough. It's like, it's either for me here at home, and it's an experiment, or if it's for a customer, it's like, here, I'm doing this, but you're getting the alignment. I'm giving you the same guarantee they'll give you the alignment store. It's like 1 minute, 1 mile. Okay, this may work for a couple months, it may work for a couple of years, but if it lasts longer than 5 minutes, I'd be happy. And that's how it is, because there's only so much you can do. To do it properly, it should be reballed, and that doesn't even make sense anymore in this day and age. Hardware's too cheap. So, which is unfortunate, because we had some great. The whole reballing thing, I think, those guys were masters.
You remember him, Laffy? You remember Laffy?
Yeah, he was the best, and
he don't even do it anymore. He's not into computer. He's an actor now, I think, or does movies or something.
Well, I'm an actor. I act like I repair computers, but no, I love.
Yeah, you're Pittsburgh Dad.
No. I'm a Pittsburgh Dad, but I'm not the Pittsburgh Dad. I got Italians and do stuff in that. So, but anyway, I mean, where are you at with this right now? What are you going to do? It's like, I don't know. Flashing the BIOS is spooky when you can actually see the screen. I would, at this point, I would feel like just pulling components until I was satisfied that there was something specific to the main board. What I should have done, and I didn't do it, is I should have tried to boot to a CD. I don't know why I didn't do that. Just to see.
If you're not getting nothing on the
I know, but still, I should have still tried it. But
yeah, I mean, it's not going to hurt. But I mean, you can try the one stick of RAM too, But
I will try that next, and then I'm gonna do the. I'll do because like I said, I've already got it torn apart. I'm gonna I'll start pulling the RAM and changing the RAM out, and I haven't really had a chance to inspect the cables yet, to be honest. I did have a little Dell, one of those little Dell Minis that lost the screen, and it was the cable. The cable had actually come unplugged.
Wow.
Video cable. Yeah, that was actually mine. But as you all know, I'm not exactly gentle on things.
Well, I was going to say that sounds like user error, and now I know it was.
There's a reason I have a very heavy-duty laptop now, because I'm hard on them.
Fred, I couldn't use that. You had that thing turned off where you can't. You like my Toshiba laptop. I can use the pad there and then hit it hard.
Tap click.
Hit it hard
yeah,
for enter.
click.
You can't do that on yours.
Tap click drives me nuts.
Oh,
I got big old fat fingers, man.
I don't like I got to use a mouse anyway, even on a keyboard. I mean, a laptop.
But yeah, no, good tips, people. I like it. I'll try those.
Good show.
Yeah, I think we should do more of that on here, like live, trial and error, whatever we're trying to call it here.
Right.
Diagnosis. I'm sorry.
Fred, we haven't had you on here in a while. Can we get your take on this whole Malaysian airplane deal? I'm fascinated to know what you have to say about it. And of course, since our last show, they have come out and said this thing went down the ocean. So, could you just kind of you have a unique perspective to this?
Yeah, change the subject. Wow. I really don't have a unique perspective on this, Tim. I wish I did. All I can do is guess like everybody else, right? I mean, what do I know? I don't think it was aliens. Pretty sure about that. The plane was, in my opinion, the plane was hijacked. And it was either hijacked by the crew or somebody else. And they flew it until it ran out of gas, is my guess.
Really?
Because they flew it until it ran out of gas, I suspect it probably wasn't the crew flying the plane. Because if they were going to hijack the plane, unless it was the whole, and I don't want to use, religious things, but, unless it was a religious thing, where they were killing people for the sake of a religion.
Right.
Which has happened. But I'm not feeling that. I honestly think that the plane was hijacked, and the hijackers tried to go further than what the plane would go, or they just killed everybody and the plane flew until it ran out of gas and then crashed. I don't know.
You're saying it's the difference between having some religious gain and financial gain. This was a financial gain thing, probably.
No, I don't think so.
Did they confirm?
Why hijack it?
Did they actually confirm it, Tim, that it did land?
I think
it's all but confirmed. I don't think they've come out and said it yet. But
I thought that I saw where Malaysian officials had come out and said that it went in the ocean. I think what's happened is they've come out and said it went down in the ocean, but we can't prove it yet. Well, and that's why everybody's so upset. That's the thing is that it's still a mystery. In a lot of ways.
It is a mystery. And, unfortunately, we probably will never know what happened to it, unfortunately, because, who knows if they'll be able to find the flight data recorder or, the cockpit voice recorder. It'd be great if they could, because then they could figure out what happened. But
they have to find something first. So, you say you don't have a unique perspective. We speculated about this the last couple of weeks, and so you've, from what you just said that. It doesn't make sense for the crew to fly out of fuel. They would know what it can and cannot do.
Well, and you would think if the crew was hijacking it for the purpose of crashing the plane, they wouldn't have flown it as far as they did, right? They would have just crashed it then, shoved the nose over and be done with it. But that's not apparently what happened. Apparently it turned, everything was shut off. The ACARs, the transponder. Those were all shut off. So but then that would take a sophisticated hijacker to know that those things. Of course, now you don't have to be sophisticated because CNN's told everybody how to do it. But you know, who knows? I don't know, but I mean that's just my suspicion.
Can I ask you something else? What went wrong here? How can a plane with 239 people on board, a 777, just go away? How can that be?
Well, I can answer that a little bit.
I mean visually, at least with the radar and all the satellites and everything. That's my question.
Well, chances are it wasn't being tracked on satellite.
Okay.
Actually, I know it wasn't being tracked on satellite. Now we do have satellite tracking, but it's not fully implemented. It's very easy. You have a thing on the airplane called a transponder, and what that does is you put a code in this little thing, and it transmits when the radar sweep from air traffic control hits the airplane. You know, they call it interrogating. So it interrogates that transponder. So it's already been pre-programmed into the computers that this code 2451 or whatever is this flight, and then that transponder will tell the radar sweep, I'm at this altitude, I'm going this fast, and blah 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 blah. If you turn that off, now what happens is when the radar sweeps by, it knows there's something there, right? Because it has a return.
I see. Just
from the metal itself, but there's no data associated with it.
Interesting.
So we call that a primary target. So a lot of times you'll be flying in somewhere, and the controller will tell you, use caution. I'm getting a primary target at your 2 o'clock 5 miles. I have no idea how high it is. I mean, it could be 5,000 feet above you or at the same altitude, but it's just a primary target. So now in the States, it would be very difficult because there's so many radars that all these radars will be hitting this primary target. So they could probably track it just based on a primary target, if they wanted to.
Sure.
In hindsight, but now over there, over the Indian Ocean or over the Sea of Japan or wherever they were initially, I don't know what the radar situation is, but I imagine it's limited at best.
Gotcha.
Once you get out over the Indian Ocean, once they turned around and got back out over the Indian Ocean, went back over Malaysia, there's no radar. There's no radar out there. So who knows where it went?
I had no idea that something like that could get lost just as a matter of course. That I was under the impression that. Well, actually, let me ask you this question: a 777 in the air, going.
Squirrel. Sorry.
A 777 in the air.
This computer repair show has really been derailed.
Well, no. I mean, this is a tech question. A 777 in the air that's not going where it's supposed to be going. At what point does it become come to the attention of our military and we know where it is and what it's doing?
Well, that's kind of apples and oranges. I mean, if it were coming into the States, that would be different. Because, like I said, we have radar, we have sophisticated radar that would, even if you had your transponder turned off, the military radars or radar systems and just regular radar systems, they would know it's there. And, they'd scramble fighter jets on it and everything. So, I mean, it wouldn't. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yes and no. And I guess that's my question. Is that with the nature of everything, especially since 9/11, where before 9/11 it would be nobody imagined such a device being used as a weapon. But now it is, and so I guess in my own mind I was surprised to hear that this thing was out there, this giant missile, and that nobody knows where it was. I was under the impression that when something like that got that lost, or where you had those conditions where it was the transponders are off or disabled, or that basically there's this giant missile and who knows where it's going, that we would be aware of these kinds of things. And I guess my question is, well, if not, at what point do we become aware? Do we make ourselves aware of it?
Well, I mean, the answer is we don't. We don't. I mean, if it's in that part of the world, we're not tracking, you know, low flying airplanes in that part of the world.
Okay. So you're saying that there is a point at which if it were to enter a certain range of the United States, and it would then be considered a threat, and then it would be on our radar, and we'd be aware of it and do something.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, just like with the drug intervention radar we have. If you go down to like the borders, like down in New Mexico, and I think there's one in Key Largo, or not Key Largo, down on the Key West.
Key West.
They have these balloons on a tether that have radar that will pick up low flying airplanes. So if you're flying 500 feet off the water, these bad boys will pick you up. So, but again, if you're out over the middle of the ocean, excuse me one second. Excuse me. If you're out over the middle of the ocean, there's no radar in the ocean. So that's why I'm saying if you're out there or you're in a remote part of the world, there isn't radar. So they don't know you're there.
Okay.
And we are going to a system that's called ADS-B. I don't want to get into a big geeky thing on it, but basically the transponder is now interrogated by satellite. So you will be tracked wherever you are in the world via satellite through this ADS-B system. And I believe they're using it in Alaska. But it's very expensive. It hasn't been fully implemented yet, or implemented at all, really. But it is coming.
Okay. I'm just fascinated by this. That, I mean, there were probably 239 cell phones on that airplane that could have been tracked. No?
Well, no. I would imagine they were probably off by and large. And once you're at 35, 40,000 feet, you're not going to get a cell phone signal. So they just don't work. You can't make a phone call from 35,000 feet.
So no GPS then.
What's that?
No GPS?
What do you mean? I guess I don't understand what you're saying. The airplane has GPS, yeah.
Yeah. But the GPS
interrogation is one way.
No longer work. Yeah, that's okay. So I'm just kind of sorting this out in my mind. Oh, it's all fascinating, and it's amazing.
I understand where you're coming from, and it is a complicated issue. And the experts on the news have said all kinds of crazy things, but the point is this: in a remote part of the world, if you shut everything down, you're not going to be seen.
Okay. And you know what? That's what I needed to hear right there. I mean, I need somebody to say, look, the world still is a big place in some places, and that it is possible
That's
for
right.
this to happen.
I mean, you'd be shocked. I mean, when I fly to Europe, right? Well, I haven't flown in a few years, but when I did go to Europe, even when you got out over the ocean going to Europe, or you go out over the ocean going to Hawaii, there's no radar. You are separated on a position report. So there will be a point, fixed points. You get to that point, you'll say, United 252, position Hannah at 2352 Zulu, estimating the next waypoint at 2452 Zulu. This next, we're at flight level 350. And then ATC writes all that down, and then they look at everybody else on their spreadsheet and then make sure everybody's separated. That's how they still do it today. You would think it would be more advanced than that.
Well, and actually in this day and age, and everything we deal with security, is that it's amazing that something like that still relies on honest data from the people on board the airplane.
That's 100% accurate. When you're out over the water, or not over the water, if you're over Africa, if you're over even northern Canada,
Interesting.
So
that's incredible. I really appreciate that, Fred. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Well, with that being all said, you guys, I think it's about ready to wrap this one up. Let's see, Mitch. If people want to get a hold of you, where do they find you at?
If they want to get a hold of me or any of us, really, Geeksters at podnuts.com, or we like to have some voicemails. We've been getting a lot of emails lately, but we'll take some voicemails too at 7076 podnut 7076 Podnut.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention that we actually do have quite a few emails, and we did not bring them. We didn't read them tonight because Martin's gone, and a few of them were really specific to, NAS device servers kind of stuff. So we're going to wait for Martin to come back to read those because I think he can better answer them than we can. So if you wrote in, don't worry, we're going to read them. It's just we're waiting for Martin to come back. Very good. And Tim?
Yeah, buddy.
Hey.
If anybody wants to get a hold of me, I am Tim Bauermeister on the G+. I'm in like Tim in the Podnuts forums. You can email me. I am tim@realpcrepair.com.
Sweet. And you can get me at fred@jetspeedit.com or Fred the Pilot on YouTube.
Wow.
Check it out. It's very cool. At any rate, with that being said, thanks everybody for listening, downloading, streaming, and we'll see you next week.
Okay, all right. I'm going to stop the broadcast. Bye, guys.